Yo, what's going on, guys? After 4 days of the league, I decided to give you another update on my character progress and my currency making strategies progress and my atlas and so. So first, let me talk about my build. So since the last video, I realized I'm missing some damage, especially since I started progressing late red maps and I started doing some endgame bosses, especially Maven Invitations, so I needed some damage, so I invested into the amulet with +1 chaos skill gems. It also has some resist, attributes, and chance to get power, frenzy, and endurance chance on kill, which is pretty nice because it frees my 1 passive point, but I didn't really want it, it just happened to be there. And I also enchanted it with growth and decay, so this point it costs 1 golden oil. Another item I bought was Toxic Rain Helmet enchant with +1 arrow, and I crafted it with essences. And I think everything else here is the same. I still have chaos damage over time multi quiver and gloves, just some normal rare leather belt, boots with onslaught. I still don't have tailwind, but onslaught is still pretty nice. Ring with curse, which is pretty much the worst item I have probably. It doesn't really have anything except for the curse, a little bit of resist and life. And the last item, ring, still just some random life resist. I also bought the level 21 Toxic Rain. And my weapon is still the same, +1 socketed gems, +2 bow, and chaos damage over time multi-crafted. And that's probably gonna be my next upgrade. I'm gonna try to craft the better bow. For flask, I still have Dying Sun, Jade Flask with increased effect and evasion, Enduring Flask, and Life Flask with bleed. I also am experimenting right now with Quicksilver Flask with enchant, increased effect, but gain no charges during effect. So it comes from Enkindling Orb. And it's always the same, guaranteed increased effect. So it is on Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. So if I use it, I am not gaining charges during the effect. So if I kill something right now, I wouldn't gain any charges. But the thing is, if you're using the Quicksilver Flask, you're mostly gonna be running, so you're not gonna be killing that much stuff during that effect, and once it runs out, then you can start killing, and when you need to go, you can use it again. So I do expect to not really feel the downside of it, but the upside is really nice. 50% increase effect is huge. So I'm gonna see how it's gonna go. I also bought the second cluster jewel setup, so here I still use Chaos 1 with Touch of Cruelty, which is 10% basically more damage, Unholy Grace, and Unwaveringly Evil, which is decent but not the best. Medium with Wicked Pole, Circling Oblivion, Brush with Death, Unwaveringly Evil, and 1 jewel with phasing on kill and some life and rest. So these are still a budget. I can replace them with probably Wicked Pole and Brush with Death or something else. And I bought the second cluster setup, which is basically the same thing, but here I have Touch of Cruelty and Wicked Pole, which is probably the best combo, and Unholy Grace, which is also pretty nice. I think you can actually craft these pretty easily with Harvest, so they are not that expensive. And here I have Wicked Pole and again the same ones. This one, Cluster Jewel, is interesting because I have the Flask one, and you can get Spike Concoction, which gives you 10% flask effectiveness and 20% flask charges, which basically means with that I no longer need to use Conquer or Potency and this setup, and I still have 50% flask effectiveness. So I still have 3 projectiles from Dying Sun instead of 2. So when I use it, instead of 6, I have 9. So this actually gave me a lot of points, and you still gain some flask effectiveness and attack speed, which is pretty nice. For second point, I chose the Numbing Elixir for 40% reduce flask effectiveness during Mana Flask, which is pretty nice for curses. Curse effectiveness during Mana Flask. So you get 40% here, and from Pantheon you get 20, so overall I have 60. You could technically go for 100% if you get 2 of them, but Spike Concoction you can pretty much only use 1 because you gain buff Alchemist Genius, which means it doesn't stack. So if you would go for the second Cluster Jewel, you wouldn't really get that much from it except for the curse reduction. And 60% is still pretty nice. You won't really feel the curses as much anymore with it. Maybe eventually I would probably go for Megalomaniac with Numbing Elixir and let's say Wicked Pole or something. This way you don't really lose the second point and you still can be 100% curse immune or reduce effectiveness. I also started to invest more into movement speed, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second why, because of my Atlas strategy. So I bought Transcendent Spirit for movement speed per dexterity. This is why I need these dexterity points, and I dropped the Thread of Hope because, well, I no longer need Overcharge because I have Amulet, and I just needed some extra points. And Potency of Will I don't think is that great. If you are using Thread of Hope, like 6 points just for it, I don't think it's that worth it. So that's it in terms of gear. Let's talk about my progress so far, and after that I'm gonna go back a little bit to my build. So I just completed my whole Atlas. I have 162 Awakening bonus, and I did most of the invitations. I only don't have a Feared, so I have almost full Uncharted Realms, and I have almost all of the Haywork Hamlet passives. I'm only missing one, which is gonna be Intelligence Gathering, and I just bought 4 of the Harvest Watchstones. So one with additional crafting option, another one and another one, so 3, and one with extra chance to grow higher tier plants. They are probably on the same level. I just decided to go with 3 of those and 1 of those. And this, by the way, stuck if you want to go for 4 with higher tier plants. But I think if you're gonna farm Harvest, getting tier 1s is still pretty nice. So just gaining additional crafting options instead of just higher ones is gonna be pretty nice. So yeah, I was able to kill all of the Elder, Shaper Guardians, Breach Lords, and the Synthesis bosses myself, and I did the Shaper and Elder invitation myself. I did them white, and I almost failed on both of them. I did it on the last portal, so that was pretty hard. So because of that, I was scared to do the Synthesis one, and I just bought a carry from someone. So you can go to TFT Discord if you want to. And here there is a section with boss carry, want to sell, and you can just search for someone selling carries for bosses. And I bought the Maven Invitation for Synthesis for 50c and Breach Lords also for 50c, and I also bought the Maven, just the boss fight itself, carry for 1 exalt. So I lost 100c and 1 exalt for services for bosses, but I think it was worth it. Getting the Uncharted Realm is really big. I already probably paid for carries just from these passive points because of the drops of Guardian maps. So when I was progressing my Atlas, I was pretty much constantly buying maps, spending like 10 chaos per map, just constantly buying maps that I don't have completed, and I was able to sustain that currency that I was spending with Guardian maps drop, with Awakening level 9 and 3% from remnants of the past, you're getting a lot of Guardian maps. So I was just selling them constantly and getting my currency back this way. Once I got the Awakening bonus objective, 162, and by the way, the last 2 points are from Doriani's Machinarium and from Vinctar Square, which are pretty expensive right now, so I don't want to buy them. I don't think it's that worth it. And I wanted to buy these Warstones, and I bought them for around 100C, and I started crafting them with alterations, and I spent 2k, and I didn't get a single crafting option, additional crafting option tier 1. So I decided to check the prices of already crafted ones, and I realized that the prices of them are 110, 120C, so there was pretty much no reason to craft them, so I just bought already crafted ones and I sold the one that I wanted to craft on. But nothing is lost, because one of the Warstones I crafted, I got this mod. So areas with rituals, altars, have always 4 altars, and I sold it for 7 exalt. So I actually made my money back and even made way more. So it was worth to craft them. And by the way, crafting Warstones is probably still insane this league, like it was another one. You just buy random Warstones and craft on them with alterations, and until you hit something good, and you just sell it. I also am able to kill Awakener level 9. I killed him like 2 or 3 times, and few times Awakener 9 and below. And the fight is actually pretty long. I was struggling with damage, but if you know how to fight Awakener, he's actually pretty easy. I think like twice I did him on the last portals. But by the way, Awakener is not that great to farm this league, so if you are failing him, don't feel bad, because most of the Awakener gems are so bad, and uniques are also pretty cheap. The only profit you get is pretty much from the Awakener orb, which is pretty rare drop, so it's not really that worth to farm Awakener. But doing the Maven Invitation 10 bosses is pretty nice. You drop Warstones, you drop the Guardian maps, Warstones and Splinters and Orb of Unmaking, and all of these items are pretty expensive, so you get a lot of money from doing these 10 bosses invitations. So the last thing I want to talk about is differences in my build that I had when I was fighting the bosses and now, because now I did respec more into movement speed, because I want to start farming harvest in this zone. So this is pretty much ready, and I'm gonna start doing it today. So I want to speedrun maps, find as many harvests as possible, get as many free synthesis hideouts as possible from intelligence gathering, and drop a lot of guardian maps from killing map bosses. And I'm gonna horizon orb the maps from other regions into ones in this one, especially tier 15s, because you can get arcade and factory, which are decent maps to farm. And you can only get these tier 15s in this zone because they are the base tier 15s. So what that basically means is that if you remove one Warstone and you type arcade, there is no arcade, and if you put it back in, there is arcade, and that basically means that Horizon Orb can give you this map as a result. And I am only favoriting 3 maps in this zone, so Toxic Sewers, Arcade and Defied Cathedral, which are decent maps. So when I was killing bosses, I had much more life. I had like 4.5k life, and I still had the Thread of Hope here with skill effect duration and attack and movement speed here. Also these life points, and I didn't have these points with movement and attack speed, for which I have right now just for running. And I also had more life over here, and I obviously didn't have these dexterity points and transcendent spirit. So if you would want to kill bosses with this build, just basically remove these dexterity points, these movement speed points and invest into more life and damage here and life over here and even damage here. So that's pretty much it. The last thing I want to talk about is my harvest stats. So I just started buying things that I'm gonna be using for harvest crafting. So I have shield for reforged defense, lightning jewel for reforged lightning, cold jewel for reforged cold, same for fire. I have 2 of them. Non-curse aura probably for crit. Flask effect, I want to experiment with attack, because with attack you can get spy concoction, which I think is gonna be pretty expensive. It's also flask. I have just normal cobalt jewel with crit. If you hit energy shield and crit multi, or life and crit multi, you're probably gonna sell it for decent amount. Chaos damage over time for chaos reforge. Just some gems for destroying them into gem cutters and experience. Chests for rerolling influence and using things like reforge crit on hunter, for example. Scarabs for upgrading them into winged. Helmet for changing influence into elder. Oils for upgrading, and so on. Death's Oath probably for changing colors of the sockets and making them 6 socket. I am still probably missing some stuff, but you need a lot of currency to invest into harvest stuff, so I am missing some stuff probably, and when I will have more money, obviously I will invest into more and more expensive items to craft. For example, right now I have only shield item level 76, and in the future I will probably craft on item level 84 or even 86. So that's pretty much it. I am missing rings for caster, reforge for curses, probably something else. Like I said, I'm gonna buy more stuff as I go. When I'm gonna find certain crafts, I'm just gonna buy stuff for it. So that's what I'm gonna start doing from now on. Pretty much every single day I'm just gonna speedrun these maps. Not really clearing that many of them, just killing map bosses and looking for harvests and making money this way. So if you're interested in seeing that strategy, I'm gonna be streaming it all the time on my channel ZenM. I'm gonna link it in the description, and I'm gonna keep making more updates how much money I'm gonna be doing this way, or if I'm gonna swap to some different strategy. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.